everyone is well, and welcome everyone. So Robert has not joined yet. Yeah, so welcome everyone. As we are all aware, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and the theme for this meeting is mental health in the arts, entertainment, and sports industry. The sub-theme being mental health among artists. So with regards to mental health among artists and people in the entertainment industry, we are well aware that we've seen such cases with likes of Avicii and many other people in the world that are going through this, and not only globally but also locally. So it's not uncommon to find people in this industry with mental illness. So we do know and we do understand that it could be for many reasons. It could be triggered by different reasons. It could be something that is there in the family, or maybe situations surrounding industry. There's a lot of incidences surrounding drug abuse, finances, such things. And this is what we are going to narrow down and discuss with our panelists today. And so with that in mind, I think it would be time for us to introduce our panelists today. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy, and also feel free to ask questions in the question box or raise your hand, then we'll attend to you. Okay, so our first panelist is Dr. Njathika. Could you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Sylvia. So my name is Dr. Njathika. I am a medical doctor, and currently I'm pursuing a residency in psychiatry. So aspiring psychiatrist. And besides that, I also dabble a bit in the arts and theater scene. So I do from time to time participate in stage productions, and I also do sing in choirs from time to time, specifically in Nairobi Music Society. So thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Njathika. So the next panelist will be Cedric Cadeny.
Hi, my name is, I'm also called Cedo in the music industry, in the entertainment industry. I am a trained lawyer, but I don't practice law. I did law in campus because I guess it was something that was within my intellectual capacity to do, but it wasn't where I was, where my passion lied. So I pursued an industry a career in the music industry, in the entertainment industry, live band performances, songwriting, and so on and so forth. So yes, I'm excited about this topic, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you very much, Cedric. I can see Robert is on. Hi, Robert. How are you? He's our next panelist.
Hi, I am good.
Okay, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Welcome. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robert.
Robert, could you tell us what you do? Yeah.
What?
Could you tell us more about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Robert. I'm a creative, poet, and spoken word artist. I'm from called Mrs. Africa. We do. Yeah. Hello.
Hello, yes, we can hear you. Brings us to the start of our discussion today.
Sorry,
Robert, were you done? Sorry. Okay, I think network problems, maybe we can continue. So we're going to be discussing, as we had agreed, on matters regarding the mental health of artists and people in the entertainment and sports industry. So maybe we can start our discussion by trying to understand, maybe from the panelists, like, can you think of any examples of mental health distress as evidenced by behavior of someone in the arts or entertainment industry? And maybe you could give us examples globally or locally. Yeah, and maybe every panelist could give us their opinion or on an incident or incidents that may have happened with regards to that. So maybe I can start with you, Dr. Jessica.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think maybe I'll pick on a few examples globally at risk of, I don't want to pick on examples locally, issues of confidentiality. But I think most recently we've seen instances, for Will Smith at the Oscars, who seemed to have overreacted. Well, it could be a reaction, there could be something there. But when we delve deeper into maybe some of the other global celebrities that we know of, so for example, people like Whitney Houston, who it was well known that there was some mental health issues that were present alongside substance use. We had other people like Robin Williams, the well-known actor and comedian who unfortunately took his own life, was known to have suffered mental illness, depressive illness. We have the likes of Michael Jackson, who did suffer some levels of illness as well as substance dependence. So there's quite a number of examples out there, and I'm sure even locally they are there. And it seems to get more as the celebrity culture also picks up locally, and with social media being very providing a platform where people have so much access to being able to compare themselves to some of these celebrities. And I think a lot of this mental distress, is linked to issues to do with mood disorders, issues to do with anxiety, and again, issues to do with substance use, insomnia. So it's quite a cycle. Sometimes you have one thing leading to another. Depression leading to substance dependence, anxiety leading to depression. Yes, I think those would be the examples that I have. I'll let my co-panelists maybe give some examples locally.
Okay. Cedric, could you please tell us your examples, or situations of behavior that you've seen amongst artists that are evidence of mental health issues, Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not sure I have concrete example of local art in situations that I would obviously attribute to mental health problems. But what I can say is that you see, most of the people who have built their careers in the entertainment industry, especially of my generation, have not had systems, to rely upon in the course of their careers. So most people have had to sort of figure out their own way, as things go by. Whereas we have in the international markets where the systems are so organized and artists who are free thinkers are having challenges into trying and fit either into this system or into becoming, into be like where you have a problem where the brand that represents you and the person who you are conflicting between each other. So I believe many people have different, backgrounds or whatever triggers that in them. And I may not be able to speak for them, but what I can say is from my personal experience and people close to me and people who we've worked together or either through projects, I can say that it's very difficult to even know or even define when someone is going through a mental problem or even realize until it's too late, because it's just a culture where we always interpret that artists are usually unreasonable, or angry, or on all those manner of things. But it's, in my opinion, as much as it may be difficult to quantify, but I can say a lot of people, if not a large majority of people who I have worked with personally or been in circles with, or even myself, have had to struggle with deep questions about life, deep questions about what am I doing, being judged, being in front of, your life being in front of, the whole world, through social media especially. That pressure, I know, has led many people to question themselves seriously and even considered quitting whatever it is that they were doing, and even worse still, we've lost a few artists in Kenya through suicide. I'm not sure if that was the cause was that there was mental health problems involved, but I know for sure that if you look at the progression of their lives before that incident happened, you can see a downward spiral that is not normal, And because of that assumed prejudgment, it's very difficult for people to rise up and say, I'm really going through a difficult time. Most people have had to build a different persona to defend themselves against the industry, or against the process, or against the bullies in social media, and so on and so forth. But just because of, I don't know, the right brain thinking nature of artists, I believe it's very, very important for us to get more aware sort of into this field, especially in the entertainment industry, and be able to notice and even see ways of coming with unique ways of upping it, or customizing ways of helping artists, for those who understand how to deal with it, having being brought up in environments where they would empathize with someone who's going through a mental health problem. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. That was quite insightful. Thank you, Cedric. Robert, can you think of any examples, or behaviors that you've noticed among fellow artists and that could make you know that this person is going through something or a mental health problem, or maybe give examples of incidences that you may have experienced or had, Yeah.
Apart from what my fellow panelists have talked about, I also like to touch on burnout. A lot of creatives or people in the entertainment industry, sometimes there's that aspect where you keep on going. You're not sure really where to stop, because this is something that when you're putting your art out there or your work out there, you really want people to receive it at some certain levels. And sometimes when you're really deeply consumed in that, you don't know where to stop. So burnout is something that it's present, or once in a while a lot of creatives experience, and it may end up wearing you down, or if somebody just drops maybe short a project is the middle of the climax of a project. And another way that burnout also is very present in the entertainment industries is such that when you look at it as an ecosystem where we have the face, which are mostly the creatives, and they're also the people behind. When you're looking at events, the people who are working in events, making sure that they happen, the people who are working in production, be it theater or the studio, working in these management teams of artists, these are also people who are also part of the creative or the entertainment industry, and are also predisposed to such conditions such as burnout, because the same way of like where you just work and work and work and work, you don't know when to stop, and before you are realizing that it's time to stop, it's too late, and it has taken a toll on your mental capability and also your physical health. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Robert. Maybe just back to you again. What other factors would you say are in play that cause, this predisposition, apart from what you've talked about, the burnout?
I think factors that are playing are expectations. Because when you're at a certain level and people see you in a certain way, therefore they raise the expectations. And therefore, when you feel you have to keep up with those expectations, sometimes also something like anxiety, because when you feel you're out there, or when you feel like you are now in the public eye and there's a bar, there's a standard, like there's that anxiety of having to match up with that, or constantly trying to keep up with that, and it starts small and it really affects you so much. And also anxiety, let's say even for performing artists, just before you go on stage, there's that butterfly, like there's feeling that comes with that. So, and you have to deliver. Therefore, for me, one of the things I can say is expectations from the public or the people around you, or the level or state that you are, the fact that you're an artist and you're out there, and therefore like you're predisposed to that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Cedric, do you have more examples of other factors that come into play that predispose artists and people in the entertainment and sports industry to mental illness?
Yeah, I guess most of what Robert says is actually the foundation of what would source of pressure. I have also noticed that there's a large number of artists whose journey has been influenced by, what do you say, the need to be rebellious. They're or it's better to do something in themselves, and just hide, and who want to be a photographer, they want to be a sportsman, but their parent thinks, guardian or whatever he thinks, or societal expectations. I also feel with the internal care of artists, if you don't have a proper support system, that would be a foundational problem in terms of you trying to find yourself and asking yourself and questioning yourself always if what you're doing is right, and judging yourself. And if it gets where you don't feel like you're achieving what you needed to achieve, it's very easy for you to get into a downward spiral. Yeah. So yeah, that's internal support systems. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Daktari, what would you add on that,
Yeah, Cedric and Robert have put it quite clearly. I want to echo some of the things that they've talked about. It's interesting. Cedric mentioned about like artists having to develop like certain defense mechanisms, or developing alter egos to cope with the stress. And it's always a question of how harmful does the defense mechanism get? So one good example I'd like to give, for example, is Beyonce. I'm sure she's like one of our most famous superstars now, and her alter ego is Asha Fierce. And so naturally, Beyonce is a very quiet, very shy, very reserved person, but her onstage persona is quite, very fiery, very vibrant. And one of the, I think having that alter ego is sort of protective, serves to protect her mental status. Because one of the things, like Cedric mentioned, is that, you know, especially when we're young and we're starting out, you know, children who are leaving high school, wanting to become artists. I was one of those children as well. We always have very idealistic minds of how things will pan out. And at that age, we always believe that we are the best, we're the it, you know, in the industry. You know, we have a talent, you know, I'm just going to go out there, I'm going to lay down one track and I'll be the it, you know, and you don't realize that it's such a competitive field. So those expectations that we have of ourselves as artists and how we're going to perform really plays a part into us developing mental distress. Also in terms of like the lack of support systems, socially for our families, you know, especially being in an African setup whereby now things are changing, but, you know, really are not seen as a valid industry, you know, until Lupita came along and, you know, she said that our dreams are valid. But, you know, up until then, it was, you know, like, yeah, if you want to become a musician, you'll end up being, you know, a one-man guitar playing for drunkards or that kind of thing. You know, if it's for the girl child, you know, it has a very bad tag alongside that. And so lacking that social support system from the family. Cedric also mentioned that the social infrastructure that we have in the country is not as such that, you know, there are no real channels to develop talent. And so that's also a problem. You know, you can get lost in terms of trying to put your art out there. Robert mentioned, you know, the process of an artist trying to work out there. You're going through so many avenues, going through so many auditions, the element of facing rejection and learning how to cope with rejection is also something that is going to lead to the anxiety and the depression. And because a lot of people go into this field when we're still quite young, we've not yet maybe developed the resilience to handle the clash, or even for those people who are famous, you know, the people who suddenly fall into fame and they're not ready to handle, you know, whatever comes with that fame, you know, social media, the scrutiny, and everything that comes with that baggage. And I think also Cedric mentioned something about, like, you know, people who are artistic having certain personality types. And that is also a very interesting perspective that we need to look at. You know, is it that people who are naturally predisposed to being naturally predisposed to certain personality types go into art? Do people with certain mental illnesses have a predisposition to going into art? So, for example, you know, people who may be bipolar may be more extroverted in nature and, you know, more willing to put themselves out there. Or do people develop, you know, the mental illnesses as a result of the art form? It's very common to find a lot of artists who are naturally very reserved, very introverted, but are able to put themselves out when they put out their body of work. But because of that expectation that you should be a crowd pleaser, you should be able to, you know, be exciting in some sort of ways, puts a lot of pressure and anxiety. And that can definitely lead to these mental illnesses that we see in artists. And then not to mention the peer pressure to do drugs. Sometimes people will get into alcohol to calm their nerves, to loosen up, you know, especially but then slippery slope by the time it becomes now a dependence, and then you develop a substance addiction.
Okay. Speaking of drug use, why is it so high? Need to be reduced or managed?
That's a very loaded question. So why is it prevalent? I don't know if it's a culture. I honestly, it just seems to have been a culture since, you know, way back when. If we look even back into the old Hollywood, the 1930s, musicians from back in the day, it was so prevalent. So I think, like I previously mentioned, So actors do get stage fright. There's a lot of anxiety. And so as negative coping mechanisms, we may turn to substances. Sometimes it's something as quote unquote harmless, like alcohol, having a shot of brandy before going on stage, or, that progressing to having several drinks while doing a performance. Sometimes it's having to meet that social expectation of being, uninhibited, that image that is expected of you. And so you might to now in the advent of trying to make your mark to get signed by certain producers, or to become published, or you might have to engage in so many social situations, and a lot of artists maybe do live performances, where there's all these substances happening. So the atmosphere, the environment is probably one of the biggest triggers. How can that be avoided? It's really has to be tackled on so many fronts. And one of the primary places the self-esteem of work that needs to be done, the psychotherapy and the psychoeducation, and getting aspiring artists to learn to have that self-esteem regardless of the number of rejections that they face. When it comes to a wider perspective, this is a bit more lofty. How do you control substances within performance? Holdings events going to be responsible for this kind of thing? Yeah, I think I'll let my panelists also give their 2 cents.
Yeah. And maybe just give us your perspective on why drug use is so high, and abuse in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, something important.
Sorry, Cedric. I think your network has issues.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
Much better. Yes. Could you come again?
Yeah. So I'm saying, I'd like to add on to what that said about how historically find ways of coping with whatever circumstances or challenges that they are facing in their journey. So it's just been easier for you not to be judged, or for you to be able to show up when you need to, even when you can't. It is always easier to use something that will help you through that process. And you see, if as I was saying earlier, if how do I say, in someone who's is in formal employment, just for instance, as an example, if you're going through a challenge regarding your work, there is such a system around you that is very easy for people to know when you're sleeping, and there might even be ways in good organizations to be able to catch that quickly and help you through that process so you can recover. So getting into the industry, wants to stand in front of crowds of thousands of people, and display their talents to all these people. But no one tells you that the moment you step onto that stage, it's so frightening. And you only know it the moment you're on that stage. That's the only moment you realize, oh my God, this is so scary. And then someone tells you, you only need to take a shot of this, or you only need to take a piece of this, or you only need to swallow this, and then you're gonna be okay. And then when it works like magic for you, it just becomes something that you cannot do without. And then when expectations become higher, you up the dose. And then that cycle leads you into a point where now you're beyond dependence. Now you're on I don't know how to say it. You created an entire lifestyle around that, Yet I believe that there might be ways of training, into how do I say, into getting, how do I say, into, if the artist would be able to communicate very well the challenges that they to an audience that will be able to be willing to listen and develop process, or don't what do I call, like, adopt systems that can be able to identify and see what you're going through is not unique. Anybody who in your position will be going through the same thing. It's just easier to get to ask is how they deal with that. And if that fellow through drugs, that just becomes the easy with it. And then in the entertainment industry, once you've gotten into that, how do I call it, cycle of being an artist and trying and then again, the higher you rise, the more in life is available to you, either no cost at all, very cheap, or you'll just be showered. It could be drugs, it could be whatever it is. You're invited to exclusive parties and so on and so forth. So it might be difficult for us to access those things just because it's not within their work environment, but because entertainment and creativity, those things are so available across the world in those circles. You're invited to high-end parties to roll with people who may not necessarily, just because they are rolling on a particular level, those things are just abundant. So if you have, let's say, drugs is one aspect, but if you're someone who has a weakness, let's say to, I don't know, gambling, for instance, or even women, the moment you taste that and you don't have self-control, it's just something that you just can't stop. You see, so you can imagine an artist doesn't even need available for you, and if you can't, someone will always be willing to, if you can't, that I think has created that culture where, but I believe there's always, you can do it. And I'm confident that the more people get to learn and understand, to see their problems just as problems that everybody else goes through, just they need a specialized attention, or just
Okay, thank you, Cedric, for that. Again, very insightful. So someone has asked a question, and maybe just to mention, we have a surprise for you at the end, towards the end of this webinar. And so I've seen a question from someone, and I would like Robert to answer that. Is drug abuse more prominent in the performing arts industry than other industries, more visible because of the publicity it generates? Maybe, Robert, could you address?
But by other industries, like within the entertainment industry, or now outside the creative industry?
My understanding of what Stuart is asking.
Yeah, I'd say I'd like to agree with that statement within the performing industry, because performing, let's say, art space, because as Sido has said, a lot happens, especially when you go to backstage. Let's say, when you look at these events, and if you can be able to access backstage, you'll realize that there's so much happening, because there are a lot of drugs, there are a lot of alcohol, there are a lot of it's like a lifestyle. And one, there's a culture aspect to it, and two, now you're coming into this culture or into this community where everybody around you is already drinking. Like that's how people roll. That's how what people do. Like, and exactly just what Sido said. If you feel unafai kupanda stage and it's too much pressure, too much anxiety, like it's too much to hold, and but the drinks are there, and you're told, okay, if you take alcohol, probably this will numb. It will numb you, and it will numb whatever you're feeling right now. Therefore, the trend or the culture now of drug use now in the performing sector or in the performing space becomes more, because it's not that hard. Access to drugs, yeah, let me put this way, like access to drugs and substances is not that limited, it's not that hard. You don't have to go that far. Be it now in even in events there at backstage, sometimes also during the production process. Some artists, like even before you produce like a song or you're coming up with a play, during the rehearsals, during the people come now intoxicated, whether after the practice session or after the execution session. So I feel, yes, it's something that is more, and one of the factors is because it's very and easily accessible, and you really don't have to struggle if you want to start doing drugs and you're in the performing sector, and it's lesser people who are doing drugs than the majority. Therefore, voice of reason or people to anchor you may not be as many as the people who encourage you to do so. Yeah, I hope I've captured it.
Okay, just he has added, Stuart has added, what about in comparison to others outside the entertainment industry? Is it the same thing?
I don't know. Okay, if I may say this, there's this, like, now let's talk about Kenya. And there's this perception like Kenya is a drinking nation. You see, even when now actually even linking it back to the entertainment, see the songs that have been really predominant in the airplay, when songs about alcohol and drugs and pombe, they really like peak a lot. And sometimes they say art reflects more about the people more than the artist. Sometimes, yeah, that's what art does. It reflects the people consuming it more than now the artist itself who came up with that art. And as a nation, if some songs can really pick up very fast, means so many people are relating to it. Therefore, it needs probably some scientific or a research to see, is it an isolated case that it's specifically the performing art, or it's something that is nationwide. However, I think for me, I can say drawing it can be what can I say? Drawing the thin line between, is it a societal issue or rather just a specific issue? It's very there's a thin line between that, but due to the factors that we have talked about earlier, starting from how Sedo finished his presentation on this topic, and also where I picked up from the fact that in this now industry it's very accessible. I feel now the rates may be slightly higher than under other industries. And finally, also to conclude, regulation. There are in other spaces, like now you as a psychiatrist, in other office and workspaces, you cannot walk into your work. It's not expected that you can walk with a bottle of a drink or smoke openly. However, in the entertainment industry, actually now that's the norm. If you come to your show, to your gig, and you come with alcohol, now when you're bazoo, you're now the guy, or you're now the person. But in other industries, it may be against the work ethic or work policies to come in drunk or to come in with some aspect of drug and substance abuse. So for other places, further spaces outside the art industry, it may be hard because already systems, conditions, and expectations do not encourage that to exist within those systems. But however, in the entertainment industry, it's the opposite. The systems there favor you to be more inclined to alcohol, drug, or generally substance and drug abuse.
Okay. I hope Stuart feels answered. Yeah. Thank you for that, Robert. So on to something else that's a bit still linked to all this. Maybe let's talk about suicide and why it is high again in this particular area. Maybe Cedric, could you address that? And also, what ways what can people do so that they are others who are in that kind of space? Cedric.
Okay. I'm able to say much about suicide because I don't know much about that area. However, let me speak on the second question that you've asked. You see, because how do I say, the current as I said before, the current environment that our industry is in is still in infancy in a lot of issues regarding wellness, and how to take care of yourself, or just being aware that something called wellness, or that there are people who are trained experts who can help you through your journey of discovery, or through your journey of business, or through your journey of, and so on and so forth. So artists who have been able to achieve, have been able to go through and have achieved something can really be of great influence and benefit to those who are trying to find their way and are struggling with the same things that they have, the older generation has gone through and has been able to solve, or through experience they've been able to learn different or better ways of handling the problems that the younger generations are going through. So within our own industry, we can encourage each other so that people can be able to benefit from each other across either generations or just amongst themselves, amongst peers, because the sense of community again, or the sense of the sense of competition in the industry is also pretty high. So it's difficult to sense of community around artists who are in the same industry or after the same, and also in addition to that, how do I say it? I guess more how do I say, like, if the systems that already exist in the market or in the industry, in other industries that have been of great help and have, there's a track record that shows that, someone who has gone through this problem, or someone, we've been able to prevent people from getting into a downward spiral that will be able to lead them into suicide through process A, B, C, D, and to be able to be aware that you might be going through that problem is by symptoms A, B, C, D. If someone hears that from a particular familiar face, if I hear it from a familiar face, or I hear from how do I say, from someone who's my age mate or my generation, or someone who I respect, who's speaking to, whose voice is a point of authority, and they can be an influence, I think it would really help, because we may not know as artists, we may not know that what I am going through is something that is potentially dangerous to my mental well-being, enough to be able to lead me into having suicidal thoughts, So I think it goes both ways, that us as the artists, we can be able to express ourselves to each other and build a community, but also for those who feel like they have the resources and understanding, and they can be able to transfer that knowledge and awareness into artists. It can be a very beautiful beginning point, so that these two sort of like different systems or ways of life can be able to benefit from the contrast that each possesses, and from the experience that each other party can bring, which can be the benefit to the other. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So maybe still, Cedric, back to you. Could you talk about, stigma surrounding mental health? How can we normalize talking about mental health? How can we reduce the stigma?
Well, I think a good beginning point to be able to define what mental health is, and be able to build awareness around, its symptoms, around it being something that is not anything to be scared about, because ignorance is something that is very dangerous, especially because it creates the mystery of ignorance, open the mind to possibilities. So just a few, when I was young, when there was a culture of young people, when you see someone who's behaving like a mad person, who's lost their mind, there was this culture of laughing. Whenever you are at a point when that eventually leads to being that whenever you are at a point where your way of thinking or a way of understanding life is different from someone else, it becomes something that you cannot express to anybody else, because that becomes a point of amusement or ridicule, because someone doesn't understand that you think different, or that you have a different perspective in life. So if there are ways that exist that are able to sensitize people on what mental health is in the first place, or build an awareness around issues regarding mental health, and present it in a language or an understanding that creatives or anybody else can be able to consume it and change their perspective towards how they see it, I believe it would be a very beautiful step towards removing the stigma around mental health. And I believe one of the challenges creatives also face is that because of having the predisposition to think different, that different kind of thinking is always also misjudged as someone who has mental problems, because the system identifies or people, or even your family or even friends, identifies mental health as being something that is in a particular kind of way. So because it doesn't fit into their thinking, it's very easy to misinterpret and think and see someone who's just being themselves and misinterpret that as someone who's having mental problems just because they think differently, and then try to force to think like in conventional ways, so that is also another aspect where I believe we can all, different people can also benefit, the different, ways of thinking. We can sensitize people to be able to, to accept, be open to different thinking, be open to change, that, we live in different times. We live in times where circumstances are changing. You live in times where human consciousness is going through a great evolution, and because of that, it's forcing people to, think outside the box, or it's demanding something different of different people, and if we're able to encourage people to be open and to be true to themselves or what they believe, I believe that will also be a very beautiful step towards removing the stigma against fearing the idea of someone having mental health problems. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Mary is asking about art therapy I think that was discussed last week. You can go to KPA website on more information. And if you have, then you can send the email to KPA, then they will respond to you. So the next question goes to Tari. How can mental health practitioners best reach out to the industry, considering their working hours, not having time, not wanting to be seen at public places, need for extra confidentiality, etc., any innovative ways that can be used, such as helplines, capacity building, trainings. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. So there's so much that needs to be done. So with regards to how the mental health practitioners can reach out to artists, I think, first of all, having a forum such as this is very useful because thankfully, with the whole progressiveness of able to do the teleconferencing, people can be able to experiences what they've gone through. And one of the modes of addressing mental health issues is group therapy, So a point where artists come together and they can just share the experiences of what they've been going through, and having a mental health professional just be there to facilitate and, guide the discussions and maybe bring out certain pertinent issues. So because also they recognize where there are mental issues, because Cedric said, the issues of surrounding stigma and mental health awareness. If people are not aware about the mental health issue, then they cannot seek help. And so probably address with awareness. And I think it's very important in terms of arts education. What happens is that we, or art people, go into artistic fields, especially now in our country where it's quite something that is up and coming. We don't have very many art schools or art curriculums for the different fields, be it acting, music, film, TV. So there's no syllabus that or people do not go through maybe certain curriculum. So I know an artist, we will innovativeness. We talk about imaginativeness, creativity, and talent. But I think there is a point whereby, having some sort of structure, and this some from experience, I have been fortunate to take a few, let's say acting classes or music classes. And what was very astounding was how tuned in they were to the mental health aspect of things. Almost like every class was sort of like a group therapy session, whereby you sort of we talk about these things, self-esteem, being able to be in touch with your thoughts, understanding yourself even before going to the creative process. And I think being able to establish that and getting mental health practitioners involved in the curriculums for people who are doing art, not necessarily in a formal education, but even having certain camps or certain forums that we can be able to address these issues in the artists. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. So this poses a challenge to mental health practitioners to really work on this area and encourage more artists to, and find better ways to help them, basically. Yeah, thank you for that. Robert, on to you. In what ways can people in the industry promote their positive mental health?
One, I think as a community or as an industry, we need to, there needs to be more stories or more people coming talking about their personal interest, their personal experiences about their mental health stories, how they, what of experiences, especially when we look at the people who we can say maybe in terms of public figures who celebrities or creators who so many people look up to them. I feel if we could have more people speaking about these issues, or we could have this conversation normalized, because it will help even the creatives who are now coming to the industry, or just anybody within the industry who may be going through something or having a lived experience but feeling alone, but feeling that the condition is only unique to them, or now feeling that there's so much stigma. I feel one way we can help, and it may seem simple, but it's really helpful, is that as a community we could now cultivate the culture of picking up or speaking out about the experiences than trying to continuously portraying that your life is a success, everything is glittering, everything is okay. And if we start by that, then it means you are already coming into an environment or into a space that is positive, and it's a safe space for you to have those days that you're just not okay, and it's okay for that. And on a personal level now, I feel like once in a while, uh, just doing self-care routines and self-practice, and remembering that yes, you may be a public figure, like yes, you have to deliver, but you're also your own self, and you really have to look out. More the more you put in yourself is the more you can give out there. And if you just focus on giving and giving and giving without investing in yourself, then at the end of the day we might lose you, or you might lose. Another thing is just investing in self-care routines in yourself. It may be like as small as work, as knowing boundaries. I feel if you know, knowing when to say no, like no, from here I cannot continue, no, from here I'm tired of this, no, cannot take this. I feel if people can learn to set those boundaries, also if people within the industry can learn to set those boundaries, it's also another way of curbing the expectation, knowing your limits, and also now living within those limits and from this expectation. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for Cedric, what can stakeholders in this industry or the drivers of the industry do to protect the players in the industry?
I believe anybody who has been able to accomplish something and to a level that they would consider successfully should be able to that as a great privilege and an opportunity people to be able to transfer some of the things that they've learned into a place or a space that can be accessed by a majority of people, who would say that. I believe that we have within ourselves, the industry, or within ourselves as a country, or whatever shared identity we have within this region. I believe the solutions lie within us. If you do not cultivate a solution from within yourself, I believe within your environment, either immediate or slightly far off, or just within the internet environment, there has to be someone across the world who been in the exact same spot that you have been, and if the players within the industry or other stakeholders to be able to put that knowledge or that information in a format that can be able to be accessible, and have programs across industries to guide people to these situations, it can trigger people to start creating a culture of self-management, self, be able to determine whether you are in proper health within, proper health without, within your body, you're completely healthy, but there might be something within yourself that, could be, you could feel that it's not happening. So I believe just more sensitivity, more awareness into people to create as a momentum around this idea, of taking care of yourself and releasing those structures into places that are easily accessible. I can just, within one click, and can be able to get all the content that, that I need within this particular topic, because it's something that I am going through, so like that.
Okay. Dr., some of the other ways you would just, stay cool in mental health field, Kenya Psychiatric Association or the drug companies? What is it you feel or you would recommend for them to do to have more awareness? And yeah.
I think having more of mental health awareness campaigns and having, like I mentioned earlier, the forums that will be able to provide examples of, positive examples of people who have been through certain mental health issues. We do have a number of mental health advocates in the country who can be able to share their experiences and how they've been able to navigate that journey. I think we really need to also be able to link up with schools, particularly, both primary schools, secondary schools, to be able to provide this awareness, mental health awareness, to those schools that even have various art programs, those elements of resilience in those children who are inclined to going into the arts, and not just the arts, but even the world in general. Like Cedric said, we're living in a time where there's so much happening, and with the advent of social media, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, it's getting to a point whereby everyone is a celebrity in their own micro-universe. And so the same expectations that we had in the traditional sphere of, artists is now become, it's creeped, it's trickled down into, to that digital sphere. So everyone who has an Instagram channel expects sort of, or to become an influencer. So we are living in an influencer generation whereby everyone thinks they can become somewhat recognized by whatever it is they're doing. And so the expectations, the anxieties, very, very basic level. And so that young generation that is going into adulthood, because I think the pressures are much more, they're being bombarded with so much of this expectation. So that would be my primary approach. Yes, so I think that's, yeah.
As you, Daktari, she's asking if you can whether an adaptive defense mechanism.
Yes. So yes, I think it's two ways of looking at it for the egg or vice versa. And so I've been through certain classes whereby, people have said, like, sometimes to get over your anxiety when you go onto stage or if you have to perform, is to not think of yourself as yourself, but think of yourself as the character that is going to do that. So it's not, it's not Cedric going to perform, but it's Cedo going to perform, that kind of situation. And so that is where I'm talking about, like, having an alter ego as a defense mechanism. And sometimes it can be very deliberate. So like I mentioned, like with example with Beyonce and Sasha Fierce being very distinct and even known, to the public that these are the two alter egos. And sometimes it may be, people subconsciously the expectations that they've had. Robert mentioned that you have to go somewhere, you have to show up, you're expected to be this way. So you begin to create that character, and before you know it, you are a character that is outside yourself. One of the very famous examples, I think, is, for example, Heath Ledger, when he was doing his character as the Joker in Batman, and he delved so deep into developing that character that I think at some point he did, stray off into, the lines between yourself and the character become quite hazy. So that's probably what I was addressing in regards to the alter ego and the defense mechanisms.
Okay. So maybe what would be your parting shot for today?
So I think it's important to have these discussions, making them very accessible, especially if we're talking about the arts industry, to artists to participate, to perform. I think it's very important to get even key players in the industry. I'm happy to see Stuart is here. We worked with Stuart, he's a director, and I think it's important to get some of these people, the producers, like Cedric said, also involved, because they are that universe of where the artist belongs, and they are very key in creating a conducive environment. It's a director who will send an actor away for showing up drunk, or showing up under the influence of alcohol, or so people who have a genuine interest in the well-being of the artists, I think that would be my parting shot. Let us involve every element of the entertainment industry.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Okay, Cedric, would you give us your parting shots?
I'm not sure I can add anything more to what Dr. has said, because you see, if you have an awareness or an understanding about a certain subject matter, you're better placed to be able to sensitize other people regarding that issue. Then they can learn from you, and then your influence can become their lifestyle, So because the foundation of the creative industry is very informal, and that we haven't yet learned those structures of how to handle challenges of that kind of nature, challenges of the mind, challenges how to handle it, how to build a community around yourself, how to express yourself, vulnerability, and so on and so forth. Because we haven't yet as an industry developed structures that are strong enough to support ourselves in that nature, then it would be very, we could benefit greatly from those who already know those things. You can benefit greatly from just awareness alone, that, listen, always be able to check within yourself, or always be able to do A, B, C, D, or whatever it is that you feel would be the best starting point. Because otherwise, what will continue happening, or what has happened over the years, has just been that people will continue to, to do things based on their own understanding, or based on what they feel. Those systems have not been proved to be either 100% healthy, or be proven or tested to just have positive effects, or to have long-term positive effects. But if there's an industry that exists that has already tried and tested these things over and over, it will be very beautiful. And this is a beautiful panel. This is a beautiful thing that's happening, in this webinar. I believe that more of this, more life growing from that perspective, more life growing from those who that they know, to those who don't understand, to those who are ignorant about this, would greatly be a foundation that will be a beginning of sensitizing the whole industry and having, reducing the boundaries of identification as, because I'm an artist, I am going through these things differently, but just to understand that you're just like any other human being who goes through challenges like anybody else, and there are ways, systems that have been proven to help or guide you through mental challenges or through whatever problems that will be frustrating enough or whatever, frustrating enough to expose you to things that would cause you to have mental problems. Yeah, that will be my part in short.
Thank you very much, Cedric. So now I told you guys there's a surprise from Robert, and the floor is yours, Robert. Thank you.
Yeah, so at this panel I was supposed to read poetry, spoken word, in regards to what you have said. And even as I just read it, my parting shot, I'll just say I feel the entire mental health practitioner community, practitioners like Kim and every professional, can just tap into the artist communities and artist spaces and let them know that it's okay when those days come. This is what you can do, and these are the places where you can seek help. When you have that information and that relationship, I think it can help so many creatives and the industry at large. So finally, as we conclude, this is just a piece of today's conversation, and I just wrote it recently, and here it goes. Okay. Footsteps kwa big stage, star dark stage, liquor spree kwa backstage, mental state iko full blown stage, dreams that came with these sleepless nights. Mama, we made it, but so much destroying. Hey, hey, cry in your pillow, but please smile at the camera. Hey, hey, keep it private, because you're now a public figure. Msanii, footsteps kwa big stage, superstar, taking a deep kwa that dark stage, liquor spree available kwa backstage, mental state iko full blown stage. The fans are screaming more and more, but the fans are screaming less and less. Just take more liquor, you'll feel less and less. More anxiety, but expectations careless. Butterflies kwa tumbo, but they can't stomach this. So any superstar, it's a dark stage, so shine bright like the diamonds. Precious you look, but they can't dig. Precious you look, but they dig so deep into the real you. Kuna stigma kwenda counseling, so wako wapi mabeshte mpange another plot. Una seek help kwa counter, so waiter another thought. Mental health iko full blown stage. Burn out, you can't stop out. Burn out, you can't tap out. But hey, hey, please chill out. Hey, hey, please check out. Hey, hey, please tap out. Hey, hey, please reach out. Hey, hey, please work out. Hey, hey, let's talk this out. You're a star. We look up to you. Please watch yourself so that you can keep on shining. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope everyone can do this. Thank you very much, Robert. That was well done, and I believe the message was conveyed. I would also like to thank the of this event, Kenya Psychiatric Association, and also everyone else who attended. I hope this webinar was helpful and very informative. You can also give us feedback through the KPA website, and yeah, thank you very much. Asanteni, you can exit at pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.